Before we get into today's show, I just want to take a second to talk about Artisticon. You can find all the details over at artisticon.net. Now, this is a conference that I have interviewed the founders before on the podcast, as well as had a number of the guests that are going to be attending. So it's happening next month, March 22nd to 24th, at the Moore College of Art and Design in Philadelphia. Now, I'm just going to take a quick look at the guests of honor, and if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, I just want to remind you that we also now have video, so you can go over to YouTube and look up Pencil Kings and you can see this. So I just want to call out a couple of the names here that you may be familiar with. Chris Oatley, Jake Parker, the Inktober founder, Carl Potts we've had on the podcast before, John Shindetti, John Wellington, Dorian. We often talk about Dorian, kind of the catalyst in getting the Evolve program started. Kevin is going to be there from the Evolve program. Crystal Sully I've interviewed. So there's going to be a lot of awesome guests, and I'll be there too. I'm not going to be a guest of honor speaking or anything, but if you see me, I would definitely love to meet you and hear your story and hear what's going on with you and your art. So if you're not sure where the Moore College of Art and Design is, again, it's in Philadelphia, and just to zoom out on Google Maps here, it kind of gives you a sense of where it is. It's on the east coast of the US, and full details are over at artisticon.net. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome back. This is the Pencil King Show, and today we're speaking with another Evolver. Today we've got Sand McUnicorn. And how are you doing today, Sand?
It's great. It's cold.
Yeah, so I always start off with the same question. So where am I talking to you from?
I am currently in Toronto, Canada. Originally from Boston. So cold countries, it's winter.
Yeah, welcome to Canada. I've heard it's like really warm in Toronto though this year compared to other years.
It is terrible. So. It is terrible. We had spring yesterday. It was like 10 degrees.
Wow.
I was like, what happened? This is how you get sick and die. Over exaggerating, but yes, you can still get sick.
The temperature's fluctuating all over the place. It creates havoc. Like so many people get sick. And
yeah.
Definitely. So we've been talking to some people who joined earlier on the program, and for yourself, when did you join Evolve? Do you remember?
I think it was maybe May, around May,
okay,
or something like that. Yeah, I think so.
Before the summer. And had you done any art study before?
Yes, I have, a lot in different places.
So actually, yeah, just take us through some of that, because I feel like it's different than I believe everyone else has taken a more, let's just say, like traditional path than
right.
the creative path, because I feel like you could say you're an artist, but there's so many different ways to slice that up,
right.
ways to educate. But just just through some of the highlights of where you came from to where you are right now.
So so it doesn't matter if it's like a school or something, like self-taught, yeah,
yeah.
So it started with way back when I was 6, someone thought it was great to go get me how to draw cats, retro style American cartoons book. Uh-huh. So I had that when I was 6, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And was
that a Christopher Hart book? Do you remember?
You know what? I don't remember, but I do have his books. I do have a lot of his books because he's really great at describing what's it called? Measurements, right? So if you drew your character's bangs a certain length, that's the same length the character's neck would be. He explains it in such a way that you can keep your proportions correct, and it still looks design wise pretty nice with the silhouette and everything. But I don't remember, but I do remember it had some orange cover and some tabby cat in the front, and I drew that cat so many times that I got bored. But yeah, that's when I was 6 that I remembered. And then after that, not really, you had your art classes and your different schools. I am a really strange case where I changed schools almost every 6 months growing up. Cause it started with my family is from Vietnam, so they immigrated over to the States. Apparently at some point I wasn't aware that in a school system you needed to learn English as a second language. So I went to a school, and then 6 months later they're she needs to actually go through this program because she doesn't speak English. And then I went through I had to transfer to a whole other school, do that. I apparently sped through the school. I had no idea what your criteria is for learning English, but 6 months later they're kind of oh well, we're gonna put you through a different schooling because you don't need this program. So after that, it just ended up like all the way to high school was just changing schools all the time. So I don't really know what a traditional like school is for
Yeah.
people. Like I don't know if you're taking like art class every year or like once
It's all over
per.
the place. I think
Yeah.
it really depends, and it depends on so many different things that it's not even worth talking about. I don't think there is a normal. I wish there was a normal, like math. I feel like there's pretty normal, and I wish
Right,
that
right, right.
if
A
we wanted to
subject,
be
so
creative,
whatever.
that we
Yeah,
had an art class. But it's
yeah.
all over the place when it comes
Well,
to
and
art.
I do know like in what's it like for example like I'm from Massachusetts, so I am aware that like the basics you need is like two of whatever subject in order to go to college, right? You don't need all 4 years. Um, but yeah, so eventually that 6 months got a little longer, but I was still like in different schools that like who cares? Like I would just go to a school and be like whatever, I'm gone, and whenever whenever I feel like it, because apparently this is a thing. But yeah, so like there's art dabbling through, and I didn't take art because like I didn't do it because I cared. It was more like it was the only class that I had that I wasn't really like outcasted for because it's who's the new girl,
Hmm.
or what it like she doesn't talk, she doesn't do it. I just didn't care like because people don't understand like when you're somewhere new, 2 months isn't long enough to make a relationship with
Yeah.
anyone, right? So you're just like, okay, whatever, like, I'll do my own thing. So eventually, like, I got to a high school that um, they had like an art class and then graphic design. And then I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I was getting like awards for like the art I was doing. And I was like, what? Like, this is weird. Schools do this?
Hmm.
Like, completely, like, yeah, I just didn't register it. But, which is interesting because I even had like a school. I went to like an all girls Catholic school, and like the art class there was like super traditional. Like, we were studying like the Renaissance, the Italian artists and things like that. And like we had an anime club, and we've had, the debate with teachers about what's real art and what's not art. So it was just not like, it was kind of there, but it wasn't really like, oh, there's a thing I want to do. So eventually, like, if you X'd out the typical schooling that you do and you graduate and you go to college, I ended up going to a college that I wanted to do like graphic design for because apparently I was really good at it. I was like, oh, this is great, cool. Like this is something I can like dabble with. It turns into I walked into a workshop for animation. And then this guy was just like, oh, I'm going to teach you like the fundamentals. I was like, hey, this is like pretty fun. And he's like, who the hell are you? And I was like, don't worry about it. Turns out that's like my 2D animation teacher like a year later. And I was like, oh, it's you. Fuck. Like I have to sit here with you now. Great. But yeah, no, and I didn't really take art seriously until like I got into animation because all of high school with the changes and stuff. My family, again, being from Vietnam, take a job that pays you, please. That was like
Yeah.
literally,
I think
my mom.
for it doesn't matter where the parents are
Yeah,
from. I don't. I feel like when a child tells their parents that they want to be an artist, it's sort of just like anything but
yeah,
that,
yeah.
like
Oh
any
my god,
job. But
yeah.
you know,
No, like so like super fun side story was like when I was 8, my mom like serious note, like what do you want to be when you grow up? I was like, I want to be a writer. Like I've never seen this woman scream and kicked in her life. Like she just walked out the room, slammed the door, and just was crying, was on the phone, was like calling people.
oh
And I was
wow,
like, what? I'm 8 years old, so I'm like, what's going on? Like you asked me
yeah,
what I wanted to be. Like I just want to go make like I want to tell stories, write stories and
yeah,
stuff. And yeah, that definitely contributed to the not really pay attention to art thing because I was too busy focusing my career on like engineering. Like I even went to Vanderbilt, which is like one of the top colleges for engineering. I went to Vanderbilt for like a little grant program. I went to I studied at MIT. Like I did what you should do for
hmm,
someone building a career, and eventually like it all it took was senior year of high school for me to be like, yeah, no, this isn't happening. I'm gonna go do my own thing. And then that was also the same time that I was like basically estranged from my family because everyone's like, she's just gonna die. That's great. You're an artist. See you later. And I was
mm,
like, great. I'll do it. That's fine. We'll figure this out. So, I went to a college that was they taught animation. They taught you like the broad stuff about it. So you had a little bit of life drawing, a little bit of perspective work. You had, the fundamentals of animation. So why motion versus design make everything move, and then the film studies and stuff like that. Yeah, but I didn't buckle down technically until maybe it was like 21, 22 when I was like, okay, we have a problem, because I 100% don't believe you should be able to animate and not know how to draw. That was a big thing going on in the industry. It didn't really make any sense to me until I started working in TV animation. But I still feel that you need to have the fundamentals down. Like, you still should understand how a drawing works in order to make it move, just like how you understand like each muscles of your body is connected to another muscle. So when you do an action, it should be all in one motion versus, something that looks like it's broken. So yeah, I actually dropped out of college like twice, and then just did a lot of self-study after, and a lot of traveling, and then traversing the industry to see like what made sense and what didn't make sense. So then now we're here and involved. Does that
So,
make
okay, I'm just gonna sum this up here then. So basically, you're going to school for graphic design, and then you've just kind
jumped
of
into animation?
randomly kind of fall into animation in school, and you like it, and so you study, but then you realize that you need to study more, and so then you take the next however many years to kind of just self-study and
Yeah,
figure
yeah,
things
yeah, yeah.
out on your own to break in.
Yeah. So basically, because I dropped out twice, right? I dropped out in 2013 because of finances. But that's when I knew that I wanted to do animation, because it was the first time I experienced like a physical depression. Like, I was actually like crying every day because I wasn't animating, and I was like, this is like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm a failure, I couldn't finish school and get a degree. It was actually the fact that I was like, I'm not making art. Like, this actually hurts me to not be drawing in a sketchbook. Like I can't go to a job without actually thinking about, I want to make a storyboard, I want to make this move, I want to design a character. Like, I actually wasn't physically able to do it. So I like got myself up, went back to the college, and then I learned the other dark side of college, which is, they want to make money. It's in the States. We're just 100% in debt. So yeah, and once I figured out that what my instructors were doing, because it got to the point where there's one class that I wasn't getting pushed through, despite the fact I was actually doing a lot of the work, and I was just getting held back. And I was like, okay, well, this is now like a business ploy versus me actually being a good
Oh,
artist.
really? Like you felt
Yeah,
like they were kind of holding you in place when.
right, right, right.
Ah,
Because
weird.
because here's the sad part about it is there are students who were were not up to par with their skill sets, who were getting pushed through the program.
Yeah, of course.
But then there was me and like a handful of people who could actually do quality work,
Yeah.
and I was just getting the fails after and after, and then that's where the second dropout came from. So I dropped out, and then I started doing. I mean, luckily for me, I got jobs anyways. Like, I got like
Yeah, but
commercial.
it's just so weird. Like
Yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah,
art education doesn't have the best name, and there are good
yeah,
schools, so don't
yeah.
get me wrong at all. But I feel like there's a lot way more bad ones than there is good ones.
Right,
But
right,
I
right.
never contemplated this of just like keeping
It's a
someone held back because it's sort of like I kind of felt like if you're in school, the instructor would be like, "Hey, this whole thing is like a big charade. You're really talented. So here's like the 4 books that you need to
right,
do.
which
You're gonna finish this semester,
right,
but then you should drop out and work on your portfolio, and I can tutor you on this. Like, I
right,
guess if a professor did that, they would get fired, and
right.
then their
Well,
career would be in jeopardy. But just okay, it blew my mind. I don't want to talk too much about the school, but that's crazy. I'd never considered that
yeah.
before.
So
So
amazing, like, because you brought it up. Because there was multiple teachers. One other teacher, like, I had another like life thing happen. Another teacher like actually just came up to me, and he was like, you and so and so, like, he named 2 people. He's like, you guys are great. Like, he's like, you don't need to be here. Like, you just need to live your life. And that was when I was like, all right, I'm done. Like, I'm out. Like,
yeah,
he didn't realize that that was the extent I was gonna do. But I was like, no, like, I'm tired of being in a school. Like, I'm not a student anymore. Like, I work hard. Like, enough that you even don't, like, the teacher just didn't even understand why I was still there. And he was like,
Right.
no, because you work, like, he's like, you will work if someone's paying you. No one's paying you to go to school. So why, like, why are you going to put in this extra effort at a school and you're not really getting anything out of it, right? So that was it. I was like, yeah, no, you're right. If someone gave me a paycheck, I'd show up to work. I'd show up an hour early, I'll leave an hour late, make sure everything's done according to plan, and like even, set up meetings to make sure the project's underway. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's basically what happened. Was this one teacher, the same teacher from that workshop, 4 years later, was like, why are you here? I was like, you know what, you're right. Why am I here? And I just
Wow.
basically packed up my stuff and left. Like,
I wonder how
you know,
many students are in the same
a
boat.
lot, a lot. I would actually, because it was I'm not going to name the school, that's they are
Yeah, yeah,
long
yeah.
closed down, but like a lot of art schools were like that. And there's a lot of people in the industry that will, they talk about it. They talk about how their peers are like drowning in debt, and they're,
Oh yeah.
luckily this guy, I'm talented enough to get the jobs, but like there are talented people out there who's just drowning under debt that can't get the job because they're just not, they're just that nudge under where the skill set needs to be for a job, and connections and blah blah blah. I mean, my bonus was, I traveled. I did my dabbling in animation on the East Coast first. I went and did like commercial work, ended up at a studio where we did like science publications. I was doing like animation and film editing for them, and it was great. And then it got to the point where I hit again like the same in college, where I was like, I'm not learning what I need to learn. I'm not happy because there's something specific that I really want to do, and this job isn't doing it for me. So I actually just took a break from the whole industry itself and traveled. So I went to the West Coast, checked out like animation expos, and all it is just tons of drawing classes. Everyone's there to talk about, how do we draw this? How do we ink? How do you draw animals for animation? How do you draw four-legged creatures running, stuff like that? Like, it was just constantly, how do we draw the thing that we want to make the short? So that brought me to LA, that brought me to like Austin, Texas. I even went to like New York a handful of times for like Titmouse. Like, they do 5-second shorts. So their employees, this is the best thing a studio could ever do is, hey, you got 8 hours in your day, make a 5-second short, make whatever you want. I don't care. We're gonna put everyone together, book out a theater. We're gonna play the short for like the world to see. And you can see, the skill sets everyone has. Like, you can be an animator and you can supposedly, don't need a draw, but there are some animators in there that can do full-on drawing. They can do their own backgrounds, the character designs, they do effects and composite it all by themselves. Like, they didn't need a team of 10 people to do it. And that was exactly what I wanted. I was like, hey, like that, like I want to be that. Like, why do I get it, like studios, you need specifics. You need to have a specific skill set so we can put you on a team, whether it's art directing or assisting or, project coordinator and stuff like that. Like, I totally buy that. But there's also something very special about a person who's like, I like this art, this craft so much. I want everything about it. I don't want to just be good at designing characters. I'm going to be making characters for the rest of my life. Like, I want to be able to, paint backgrounds and then make a short. Like, maybe I don't want to do digital anymore. I want to go make a stop motion film. So someone go teach me how to make like, claymation and like puppets so we can go make this work. Like, that was the thing about it that I really like, because you're not limited. Like, a lot of art skills, like when I did the whole journeying through, and I'm still doing it now. Everyone is so specific. Like, there's a specific brush I use. There's a specific, paint set I use. Even people who create like sets, there's specific, wood and blah blah blah, and you can keep going and going. But then, for me, it's like I admire the people who give me a bag full of trash. I will make something out of it. We will upcycle. I don't care. I'll make whatever it is, and then you would never know that it came from a bag of trash. And I mean, I do that now. Like, I make like paper crafts, so I make like paper flowers out of like wires and paint and stuff. You never know that it's just like a bunch of cardboard boxes that someone was recycling, and it looks like silk flowers and stuff. It's just, that to me is what an artist is to be able to take something and make something completely different and brand new, and you never know where it came from. But that's super sidetracked. But yeah, so I
That's
still,
okay. I think it's
yeah, yeah.
it's interesting, and it's really I think it's kind of envious what you were able to do and traveling to all these different shows and to finally see the thing that you want to do, because I think there's a lot of people seeing something and they think they want to do it, but they have
Right.
no idea what the reality of it
Right.
is like. And so they're like, well, I want to be, I want to make the ones that I hear all the time are, I want to make a comic book or a graphic novel. I want to be a
Right.
concept artist, or I want to be an animator.
Right.
And it's like, okay, cool. Well, what have you made? Like, show me your
What do
thing.
you
And
do?
nobody's
Right.
done any of this
Right.
stuff. And it's
Well, and it's usually
it's okay, but I feel like you just need to try the
right.
thing. And what's cool about what you did is that when you see the thing, then you know, like you just feel it inside, and you see
Right.
someone else doing it. But this is not anything that's ever listed on like a college thing
Right. Right.
of
Right.
like, you just have
No.
to kind of live and experience and talk to people and try new things.
Right.
But most people don't have the opportunity or the guts, I think, is part of
Right.
it, to just like, I'm gonna take a year off, or I'm gonna take 6 months
Right.
off and go and
Right.
check out these different
Risks,
things.
exactly. Like
Yeah.
people are huge because like I said earlier, I'm from Boston, right? A lot of great things came from Boston, a lot of bad, but you hear it all the time. Like when you look at like celebrities in Boston, right? They're humble people. Like my wife is a bartender. I'm an actor, but my wife is a bartender. My whatever. It's there. So the risk is there. It's just the people. It's what I learned is it's exposure, right? So when I went to college, I'm gonna date myself. No, like a lot of like I went to school with like this guy that could literally blow Evolve out of the water. He was just drawing realistic portraits of people from like, 13, and it was so good to the point that like a crazy person in animation was like, "Why don't you just make your animated short with this style?" And I'm just sitting here like, really? You're gonna make him, realistically paint people frame by frame for like a 3-minute short in like 4 months? Do you understand what you're saying? Like it was just like the breakdown, but it was the fact that like you're so good. But my thought process was, if you can draw and paint realistically, why are you even gonna do an anime short with it? At that point, it's live action. Like just save yourself the trouble. It's
Yeah.
live action at that point. So we had that going on, but we had people like that, like people who they came in and just their egos did not stay at the door, where you had people, you're a prodigy, you're great, you guys got like solid styles. And then the mentality, from the school I went to, it was simply, well, if I'm as great as you all said, then I don't have to move from Boston, and I wouldn't have to, I could sit here and the jobs would come to me. And that was where like, I drew a lot. I was like, you don't get it. Jobs can't come to you if you don't even know where the jobs are coming from.
Right.
If you figure out where the jobs are coming from, who do you need to talk to figure out how to get that job in order to get that job to come to you? It's a full circle. You can't just assume it's like someone winning the lottery.
Yeah. I've thought about that before, how your environment plays a part. Where
Right.
me growing up in this little village of 650 people, there was
Oh my
no
God.
opportunity, and so I knew I had to get out. And then the internet
Right.
came to my town when I was about 13 years old, so that was like the outlet where I could start connecting with other artists.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And it was just kind of like failing forward.
Right. Yeah. And it's definitely, you're right. It's definitely, where you're from, right? So like Boston is not known for art. You have your film
No, but
industry
it's
for
still
sure.
it's still a major city.
It is,
like,
yeah, but
so
it
you
is
might feel like,
heavily
this is
right.
where I'm already here. I'm sure there's
Right.
lots of cool stuff happening in Boston where people could be, like, the prestige that you feel.
Right,
It's
right.
like, yeah, it's not Hollywood, but there's still Hollywood
Right.
movies shot in Boston, and I
Right.
got to work on that, so I have the prestige, and it's like,
Yeah.
kinda.
Yeah.
You do and you don't, depending on how you look at it.
100%. Yeah. It's but Boston and like Massachusetts, their main focus was always innovation and education, right? That's why you have Harvard. That's why you have MIT. Like, people don't take art seriously. They teach art and animation at Harvard. No one takes it seriously. I used to work for Harvard, and I was just like, oh, this is gonna be really interesting because I want to see. And then it's not what you need.
Yeah,
it's not the
right
same as
place to
just
go
going.
for
Right.
that.
But it's great that you have it, right? It's again, it's exposure. But yeah, no, you're 100% correct on your environment's a big deal, because everyone I know, I'm the only one that left Boston from my group of people. They love it. They want to stay there. But it's the same with New York. The only reason New York has a film animation industry is they have the schools for it, and the people grew up there, and they know how to get around. So for them, oh yeah, a 2 hour commute is like normal. Like it is, oh, I have to go to Manhattan to go work at this like small animation studio. Like that's totally fine. That's cool. Like they're from there. They're fine. It's the same thing with any other major city like Vancouver. We always hear about it. Vancouver Film School. They have the animation hub. They have the film hub. Now Toronto's a big thing because it's where people want to go shoot their films. Guillermo del Toro's was it Crimson Peak was filmed here. What If with Daniel Radcliffe is here. Like they just all you gotta do is book out the block that you want, set up your set, and then just fence it off so no other extras can walk in. And you guys, now, I mean, I learned about it being here that whether you're in Vancouver or in Toronto, you guys have like film credits, right? So it's all about subsidies and getting your project biddings and stuff like that, to the point where they're like, you need to register with the government that you work in film and animation. And I'm like, why?
Oh yeah,
Why do
yeah.
I have to
No, that's a
register?
whole industry. Like
Yeah.
there's always like the story behind the thing, and you're like, why is the
Why do
movie
we need
like
this?
this, or why is the book like
Yeah.
this, or why is this? And
Yeah. Oh
you know,
yeah, absolutely.
as the kid, like in me, as the fan, like you just see it at surface value, but then you're like, whoa, there's a whole business case study behind that of why, like all these
Right.
decisions that came to that happening. Um,
Conclusion. Yes.
the question that I want to ask though is that you've seen so many different things, and
Yeah.
you've studied a lot, but what pushed you over the edge to get started with Evolve? Like where did you hear about it, or what
Um.
was the thing that
Oh,
the spark?
so you had a podcast interview with Sergio Paez,
Hmm.
uh, for Spa Studios, and it was for storyboardart.org. So it was like a free webinar. This was like earlier 2018, like maybe Jan or something. Like I don't recall. But yeah, you were having an interview with Sergio, and like Sergio's like my hero. Like he worked at Blue Sky. I had like I know several wonderful people at Blue Sky, and he was doing like Rio. He was talking about his work with Rio. He did Despicable Me and all this stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, like this guy's super cool because he's working on a feature that like I would die. Like I don't care. Give me 1 sec. I want to be on this movie. This movie is gorgeous. And so to have that kind of artistic vision, like I follow him. He has a class. I do some of it when I get a chance to shape up, because maybe one day like I can finally be a director and try to set this 50-50 in animation, because the percentage of women in animation is like horrendously low, and we want to like flip that sometime in the future. But yeah, you had like an interview with him, and the whole concept of your interview was like, I want to make money when I sleep. And I was like, that is hilarious. But it made sense. It made like 100% sense to me, because it was like, yeah, like we have a skill set that you could, we get paid for our services, but we also have, again, with the whole, like, you're not limited to the one thing you can do, right? So I'm not just limited to making animations. I can go make products and sell it.
Yeah.
And like all this stuff, like it's the fact that again, you're just not limited to whatever bubble it is that they make you think that you can do. Like if you're a graphic designer, they're like, oh, you strictly only do shirts, you strictly only make the typography for my website. You don't have to. Like, and so many things that I've experienced is like people, like a lot of higher ups try to drill it into new people coming into the industry is, this is all you can do, and this is all you're gonna do, and that is it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, which I thought was like incredibly bizarre, because there is something about investing in your employees or investing in your students, especially if you're like a director mentoring someone coming in, and you're like, hey, this guy, like he's got it, he's got an eye for whatever it is, like just keep feeding him the opportunities and shape him up. He can get better. Or if there's something specific that he wants, you can make it work.
Hmm. Oh, that's such a
Yeah.
fantastic attitude. Like for anyone who's like, I don't know, just has anyone under them. I think that's such a great way to look at it.
Yeah,
Like
like
I'm this person's coach, and by
right.
helping this person develop, they can turn into like a superstar.
We're gonna,
And
yeah, because you want like a legacy, don't you? Like, because that's the crazy thing, like with any artist, like you're gonna be known for the beautiful thing you work, whether it's on a national or like a universal scale or just your community. It doesn't matter. Like people will know you for what you make. But like it sounds like terrible. Sadly, your artwork will fade away along with the memory of you when hundreds and hundreds of years go by. Like it's not gonna be there forever.
Hmm.
But what can you leave behind, right? Like I don't plan to have kids, so it totally makes sense to me. Like, hey, like if you're gonna go and collab with me on this project, let's make something big out of it, because then that's something for you and that's something for me, and you have an audience, and eventually someone's gonna be like, hey, what do you like? How do you do the thing that you do? Do you really want to know? Yeah, like I really like it's cool. Like, how do you figure it out? And then that's it. Like if you have all it takes is that genuine the genuine interest to actually want to do it. Because it's different than like, hey, like, what's your job like versus wait, but how do you actually do that? Like you throw out these terms, I don't quite get it, so explain those terms to me, and you're just going down the rabbit hole after that. And then next thing you know, it's like there are things out there that you can do that you never knew that you could do from like start one, because you were originally just talking about like something like a painting. You would never know that your painting has like 20 different like names for it, because depending on what you're making it for, if you're making it for a film, it's called like narrative illustration. That turns out to become movie posters. If you are doing it for animation, it's called a keyframe painting. It's essentially what your entire short should be in one drawing. Like that's the thing that people don't think, because they're just like, oh, well, I'm gonna be stuck doing life drawing for the rest of my life. But there are people who do that. There are people who just love life drawing because there is something about human gestures, like the way that you decide to like sit and look to someone to your side is going to be different than how I do it, because it shows personality, and it shows everything. It could show like your age, maybe the kind of person you are with like what you're wearing, and like there's so much like storytelling all behind it that people don't really think about that, because at first it's just like, I'm just going to do what I see. Yeah, but what do you really see? So it's definitely, art is just a gigantic rabbit hole, and it depends on which like portal you go through because
Oh yeah,
you'll
yeah.
eventually make like a cycle.
There's no real map. I think you just have to enjoy it and then talk to other people, and they can.
Right,
And
right,
I feel like that's now part of what I do is like a guide to help people just get over that hump of self confidence, so
right.
that then they can start to contact people who can point them through the right door, and they can
Mhm.
try it on for size. But I want to go back just 1 second.
Yeah, yeah.
I was talking to Sergio on
Right,
a
yeah. So
podcast,
you
but
eventually
like,
talked about Evolve. You guys,
oh,
because
okay.
Sergio was like, he's like, yeah, like all these like storyboard artists involved, and I was, like I do everything in animation. I still try to do it, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Like, let me look into it. And it was like, you just started, like Evolve had just started doing like their online thing and all this stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. So like that, then it's just waiting. Like I was just like, oh, this is the thing. But yeah, like you were talking about like Pencil Kings and stuff, and I was like, oh, this is really different. Like this is super like way left field. So yeah, that's what all I remember was like, okay, like this guy was talking about Evolve, I'm gonna go look into it. And then eventually it was like, hey, like we're doing enrollment in like 3-4 months, and I was like, okay, cool. And then I saw exactly what Evolve was, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I was like, I'm just gonna do it. um
But
but the
how
reason
did you know that you want to do it? Like, I feel like for me, I was looking for years and trying to develop a curriculum, and then uh, Dorian pointed me in the direction of Kevin, and I
okay.
was like, I don't believe that this is possible, and immediately was like booking a flight, because I knew that this is what I wanted art college to be like, that I could go and
Right,
develop these realistic
right,
skills, knowing that knowing that something would come from that, because you don't know enough in the
right,
beginning, but you know if you
right,
can create something that looks like what,
right.
like the idea in your mind or what you can see or whatever it is, that will
Yeah.
turn into something art and creative related that.
So yeah, so Evolve is actually my experiment. It's fun. Because I 100% wholeheartedly believe that in order to cartoon, like everyone thinks animation's easy. I was like, hell no. It is absolutely not. Because everyone who still draws an animation draws from life. If you can draw realistically, you can simplify it, and then that's how you get your cartoons. So everything you do, it just comes from life. It just made sense to me that, hey, if I could draw realistically, then everything else just, it will be easier, because all it is just style reference checks. How do I, my own personal thing would be, how do I like drawing, the hair, the eyes, the body types, or the kind of characters I want to design. Like, that's where it came from. So, like, I 100% was like, yeah, if this guy can solidly get me to draw realistically, then I'm kind of golden with what I want to do with animation. And then after that, it'll just be a matter of hitting every single like animation adventure I want, in terms of learning to do different art styles, and then have it super simplified. So that, I mean, that's where it started. And then the experiment is, you're a draftsman. So there's a big difference between painting and drawing. Like, your exercises are huge, right? Like, when you're drawing, it's, can you draw a straight line? Can you draw a 2-inch straight line? Can you do that 200 times? Is it going to be straight, or is there like a bump? How do you hold your pencil? Like, there's so much technical stuff, but it's like, it's also super important with painting, because it's how can you control a box? When you draw a box, is it a perfect box, whether it's a rectangle or a square? And do you have full control of it? So if I was to flip this box 360, are you able to draw every single degree of it and every single like direction that it goes? And for me, like that is super important, because it's all visualization, right? So with painting, I was like, this is going to be really interesting, because it's the reverse. You're reverse engineering drafting, basically, because drafting, you start from a line and then you fill it, whereas painting, you fill it and then you work your way out. And so I was like, I want to try this to see, because it's it's a thing that a lot of people do in animation. A lot of background painters are like, I do that. I'll throw a blotch on the paper, and then I'll start doing the lines and make a character out of it. Whereas their significant other, or maybe their peers, would do the other way, where they'll start drawing with the lines and then they start filling in the details. So yeah, it's basically, I didn't really paint. Like, I dabble with inking and like watercolors. So I was like, oh, this is gonna be really interesting.
Yeah, I didn't paint either, and I think it was just that there was, I did go to art school, and no one taught us how to paint, like, because it's all the school that I went to, or a lot of it is about just the idea. What is the idea that you're trying to convey with your art?
Right,
And
right,
which is like, there's too much room for interpretation, and no one could give me the technical, like, how to do that,
right,
how to do this,
right,
like how to render, how to make something, how to do something with intention and have the control, so that it's like,
right.
well, okay, you put something in front of me and I can create that, but I want to make an orc and also have the
How do
technical
I?
ability
Yeah,
to be like, okay, well, in my mind, I know what an orc looks like. I can do some
right,
studies and sketches, and then I can go and make it,
right,
and be happy with the result. And I think that's where I was excited that
right,
that's the big promise that we'll all get there. And so far, it's like,
right.
yeah, the students are just cruising
Yeah.
towards it.
Well, like, super like deep down, I think I just jumped on Evolve because I was at the point of I just started like my first TV animation job, and then the self-doubt came back, right? Because like I said, I was in and out of the industry for a little bit,
Yeah.
because I was like, I need to figure this out, and I needed to, like, a lot of the journey was like, what kind of people do like I want to be associated with? Like, what kind, like, because it's art is described in so many ways, right? So it's the kind of, personalities that you're mixing with. And I was like, well, I'm kind of a go get, like, it's not kind of, I'm a risk taker, I'm a
Yeah.
go-getter. Like, I will go on that plane. If you're like, hey, I'm DJing tomorrow in Las Vegas, done, we're going, like, tell me how much it is, I'm gonna go there. But like, there's so many different mentalities in animation, and for me it was just like, okay, where do I fit? Like, I'm this kind of person, and then everyone else is either like super introverted, super extroverted, whatever medium that they like, that's like hardcore living, breathing, that's what I do. So for me, like with Evolve, like, I finally, for me, I got it. Like I finally got into TV animation after all the work I've done in other niches of the industry. I finally got the full circle back. I get to do what I want to do. And then it like, it kind of like brought me back to like step one, because I was like, I can't draw. Like I thought I can't draw because I practice all the time. I like live and breathe animation. I study, I do like film work and stuff like that. But it was like, for me, it was like something's missing and I don't know what it is. And so it's more like soul searching. So for Evolve, like, I'm getting to like getting through block one. I got block two today, and I was just like, I'm super in a different place than I was when I first started block one, which is really interesting because it took like 7 months. But the confidence came back because for me, as I'm going through Evolve, it's the fact that all the things I thought I didn't know, I actually did know. It's just I wasn't in the right mindset to see it or to be aware that I actually knew these things. I just never applied it or had the right setting to be like, oh, like I know how to do this. I knew how to do this. I just no one ever told me that I could do it. So so for Evolve, it was really more of a soul searching adventure. Like it's still part of the journey. Like as you can tell, everything was about figuring out what my life was gonna be like, and I'm still doing it. And but it's fun, and I meet interesting people from different facets of life, and it's just everyone's story, whether they believe it or not, like resonates with me because you have a family, you have jobs, you were told art isn't a thing, you can't do it, you made the mistake of I did it, I liked it, and then it stopped. And for me, unfortunately, I just don't have that personality. Like I have to do what I really want to do, otherwise, like I experienced it in college. I cried like it, and it's I can't imagine functioning in like a science lab and they're like, what's wrong? And I'm like, oh my God, like, the test results. Oh, geez. Like
I don't know where that comes from. In like, I had interviewed Kristen, and I often talk to Kristen in the mornings because that's when we
Mhm.
do like a live session. And she
Right.
was saying like if she's not painting, she's kind of angry. And I just kind of
Yeah, it's
nicknamed
a
it painter's rage. But today I felt it because I
you want to
never,
make something. Because it's
yeah.
the immediate creation and you get a result and it's there and you can see it versus
And I think
doing
it
something.
also comes from some kind of like confidence that you have, even if you might not know what you're doing. You might be trying a new medium, but you have some kind of like inner creative confidence to just
Right.
make.
Right.
And if you can't do that, then you feel like stifled somehow. And
I have a quick, easy version for that. Yeah. It's because art is the only form of communication and expression that you can do that no one can tell you what and how to do it. So, for example, you can paint whatever you want. I can't come in the room and be like, why are you painting that? Go paint this instead. You can actually tell me, no, I really want to do this. Whereas if you apply it to anything else in life, like growing up, I have friends who are like, yeah, like I'm gonna grow up, get married, have kids, because that's what you're supposed to do after college. But that's the thing, like you were told to, right?
yeah,
But you can't tell someone how to express themselves with art. Like I still dance. Like I used to teach dance. I used to do like hip hop and like ballroom dancing and things like that. No one can tell you like you can't dance. Like I could be like, yeah, I don't need music to dance, and I do it to annoy my husband, but it works because for him it's like I don't even know what song it is, but I feel like I can hear it. And I'm like, yeah, that's expression. Like it's no one can
interesting.
control your sense of expression. So like if you're angry, yeah, you can draw a really angry painting and no one can tone that down. No one can be like, hey, like bring it down to a 2. It's like, no, because if you're not gonna listen to me verbally, then I'm gonna do it visually. And you can't I feel like visual skills are very difficult for a lot of people. It's very hard for them to put what they're thinking on paper or any medium, right? So that is something, again, that's something you can't change. You can't change how people see the world. You can't change, so that's basically where that feeling comes from. Like if you can't do it, again, you're also doing it for yourself. because you have a job, but it's not just for you. It's, you need to eat, you need to have shelter. If you have kids, I need to take care of my kids. I need to take care of my, significant others. If I have a mortgage, it's all of that. Like, you have responsibilities, but art is the only form of expression and communication that you can actually do for yourself that, people can't take away from you. So
Yeah,
even if you draw,
I never thought
yeah,
of it like that, but I think it's a great way because people can tell you if you try to do something representationally that the eyes are off, but they could never tell you how to fix it. Most people
right,
can't,
right,
and so then
right.
it becomes a very personal thing. I like that.
Yeah, it's a very it goes incredibly deep because again, it's what you see, right? So even if you and I saw the same picture, we're not looking at the same thing. You could be focused on like the whole big picture. Let's say it's like a picture of Central Park, and then what I notice is the couple sitting on the fountain. I didn't even realize it's a park. I just noticed there's a couple sitting on a fountain. Like, that's basically what it is. It's and in this day and age, everyone has to go, go, go. Like, you don't really get a chance to like take care of yourself. And art is, for me, I think art's the same way. That's why people watch movies and TV. It is an art form. It's just someone else is doing it, and you get to be a part of that journey
Hmm.
versus, physically doing it yourself. So, yeah, art is kind of like therapy. It's nice. It's free.
And so I'm curious, and this is one of the questions I've been asking everyone is, what is your strategy for getting your work done? Because I know for me, I started and then I just got busy with trying to get a bunch of things done for the program, and then when I finally just said, okay, an hour a day, then I think it took me about 2 months to
Right.
finally finish things off. Like it went fairly quickly, but for you, how are you? You said you've been block one, you're almost done, 7 months. How have you been approaching it?
So I actually didn't start block one until like towards the end of the year because I was in production.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's
Yep.
why the big holdup is
Gotcha.
literally like 6.5, you know, yeah, 6.5 months is because I was on like a Nickelodeon show and I was like, I have to animate unicorns. Like, Christmas is coming.
Oh, that makes
Yeah, so
sense.
I
Yeah.
was actually like, it was actually work. So I didn't start, but when I started, technically, uh, a week. It took me a week to get through block one. The only reason like I haven't like
What?
sent it in, yeah, it actually took me just a week of just doing
Well,
evolve.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm like sort of speechless here because, well, walk us through what that week looked like because when
Oh
we
yeah, well, so
started
I
like a
don't
year
sleep.
ago, it when we started a year ago, we were only checking the homework once a day, but
Right.
now we're checking it more
Oh, so
frequently. But
so that was the other thing too. All right, so that was the thing that like drove me crazy because nothing against evolve. It was because I had such an insane like schedule because I'm always doing art and I'm always doing my productions and it
yeah,
just doesn't stop. One, I don't really sleep. I sleep like 2 to 4 hours a day, and if I know 100% that my slate is clean, I'll sleep for like 16 hours. But like I actually enjoy not sleeping because
uh
I
huh,
like being busy. But yeah, like the first, I think like five like videos, right? When you're going through the pressure grades and stuff, and the gradients. That was, it took so long waiting for like the homework and stuff. And I was like, like, come on, guys. Like, cause I did try to do like, oh, okay, this day I'll have evolve time. This day I'll do this. No, it was literally just the homework checkups kept me from going because I'll be sitting here like, hey, like I booked, like I cleared out my schedule to do this, and then it's like no, like it's like 2 days later, I still haven't gotten like my check or pass, and then I finally talked to Kevin because I was like, hey Kevin, um I do art professionally, like I get that like I should have I should look at your videos and see like because the point of me taking Evolve is how do you see things because obviously everyone's different and you're teaching us how to look harder basically like see the things that you normally wouldn't notice and yeah I was like hey man like I'm a professional I do work and this is it's kind of a hold up and then eventually he was just like hey just do it like just do all just do the do the complete drawing and then send it in and then so I did that but then the turnaround was still too slow for me so I just went through all of them and then I was like, okay, well, he was like, hey, just like email Piper, and I was like, cool, and I emailed her, and I just did like a picture dump. I was like, here's everything I did, and she's like, cool, we're just gonna here, just open up your email, and it was like, hey, now you're over here, and I was like, oh yeah, awesome, like, cause basically, cause like I said earlier, like I knew how to do everything, I didn't get a chance to sit down and actually understand the process, right? So basically, because I figured out the process so early in the block, and I was just way too impatient, and life was just screaming at me. I was just like, I'm just gonna do everything. So it only took me a week, and it still took me a while to like send it to her because my workspace is so small that
Yeah.
unfortunately I have to like cover everything with like fabric because my digital computers here, right? I do digital animation, so I have to like make sure charcoal's not getting in the my workspace and stuff like that, make sure the cleanup isn't terrible. So
Yeah.
it's like a friggin' 3 hour setup and then like a 3 hour breakdown. So for me, it was like, no, you guys,
Wow.
like, you gotta, I'm gonna do everything because the breakdown is worse. Like, just, because I also have a dog and I also foster dogs. I'm like, if these dogs lick like charcoal, like, I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
you need to be like nice and cute and pristine when someone adopts you. We're not doing this right now. So I would like section off my workspace and basically be like, leave me alone. And my husband is, super supportive. So he's just like, he'll do like the house chores for me. He'll do all the errands while I'm like hammering this stuff out. And I'm also like recording these time lapses too as I do it because I'm like, I'm doing it anyways. Like, might as well record this and watch like the mistakes I do because there are a lot of mistakes along the way. And I was like, we're gonna make a note right here to not do this again.
Yeah, I think that's part of
Yeah,
the journey that you realize things along the
yeah,
way, and you're just like, okay, well, like I have to keep going. I'm a student in this thing.
right, right, right,
Next
right.
time, I will
Yeah,
improve on
but that's how
this.
you learn for sure. Like when you figure it out, right? And that's the reason it took so little time is because once
Yeah,
I got through like the first drawing, I knew like how to not do the things, like
yeah. I think it was
yeah,
like that for me too. That I went through it. There was a point where I like had this quantum leap where it was like, oh,
right,
it's not charcoal drawing. It's like I'm pushing edges or like you just get
right,
this
right, right,
other
right.
level of control where all of
Yeah,
a sudden
yeah,
it's like you're using still the same pencils, but it's like a different medium. Like you just have a level of
right.
control
It's a
that you
different
didn't before.
control, right?
And when I did a test digitally, I got to the same point, but it wasn't until like and it's just experience. You just there's no
Yeah,
shortcut. It's not like you can watch a YouTube video and be like, "Oh, I got it." It's like
right.
you have to do the
No,
20 hours or whatever
it's
it
all
is.
feel,
Yeah.
it's all pressure. Because even when you do it digitally, right? Like I have the Wacom 27-inch screen, and it's, pressure sensitivity is a big deal because if I set my brush to, like 75 pixels, that's not too big. But then I set the smallest to be like 1. If I like hammer down on my screen, it'll be the biggest brush. But if I just use like what my average pressure would be, it wouldn't be anywhere close to that. It would be probably like in the 20s, But that's the whole point of Evolve was like teach you control. Like, are you gonna like poke a hole through your paper because you're so like frustrated that it's not solid black? Like, it's the same thing when you
Yeah.
work with graphite. Graphite gets really intense after a while too. Like,
I wonder how block 2 will be for you cuz like I put my work back here so just to show what I'm working. So today is an experiment to try and compartmentalize and do just one thing.
right,
And I think today is the day when I finally had that quantum leap again with paint where it's like
right,
I was unconfident, and I think this is like my seventh or eighth one where I was not
oh, okay,
confident before. I've always hated painting,
right,
and that's fine. You don't have to love painting. Like I want the result.
right.
I want that
The
block 4 result
experience,
when it's like
yeah,
there's no limit to what I can do. But now having this, I feel like okay, now it gets fun, and I can start like hammering
right.
through these things. Whereas before, I was just like, so I'm excited to see how it will be for you too, because I feel like you also have not done a lot of traditional painting, correct? I think we said that earlier.
Yeah, not quite. Like I dabble. I get it. Like it's
But
I'm
you've done a
also
lot
one
of drawing, right?
yeah.
And
I don't
for me too,
yeah,
drawing was like very
yeah.
straightforward. Once you got the concept, you just
Right, right,
cruise
right.
through it.
Right,
Painting though, now I feel like okay, I got the concept and I could cruise through it.
right.
Um, so for somebody who's starting out, and I feel like most people in the program are not pros.
Okay.
There are some, And I feel like sometimes our proness works against us in this program where you're just like, look, I'm a pro. I want to go. I want you in the
Some
room standing beside me. Like,
right,
let's go. Let's do this
right,
thing
right, right.
quickly.
So some and some, right? Because time is speed. So that's the thing that I don't think like people quite get is you get faster, but you gotta do your 25,000 paintings to go get faster. It doesn't happen in 5 or 10. You know what I mean? Like I was faster with block one because I'm a sponge. You can just provide me information and then logically I just connect the dots and then it works. But like
But
5 years ago,
for somebody who's starting though, like, what would you? Let's say somebody got your block two box today. For somebody who just got their block one box
right,
and they're not a pro, because I know you've talked with a lot of the other students, but
right.
somebody on day one, what would you tell them to kind of like set them on the right track?
For sure. Take it seriously. No joke. Like you wanna go past your box or circle. Well, guess what? You gotta earn it. It's time and it's blood, sweat, and tears. I know it sounds like terrible, but it is like you really want to get good. You gotta hammer down and make it a thing. Like for example, like I said earlier, I live and breathe the thing I do. Like no joke. Like everything I look at, it's all related to animation, no matter what. Like even my husband is an animator as well, so we do tons of bouncing back techniques, how to do stuff. It's bad because those two, sometimes the way you do something and the way I do something is not the same and might turn into a fight about whose way is better. So for me, like anyone, it doesn't even have to be evolved. Like if you choose to take art, you know, first of all, differentiate whether it's a hobby or something you really want to do, because that actually sets the level of how much you want to learn. Like if it's a hobby, who's accountable? Just you. You don't care if the teacher's like, hey, this edge was supposed to be crisp, but it's a little, it's a little blurry. You might want to tighten up. But if you're doing it as a hobby, you don't care. You're like, whatever, like, I'll do it the next time. But if you're in it because you actually like physically and mentally want to do it. And I say physically because some people do have the emotional outlet for art, right? Like you're not
Yeah,
drawing, you start breaking down, like, and you can't explain why. You
yeah.
just know that you want to do it. Um, but yeah, like if you have that, if you get artistic blocks and artistic, depression, yeah, that's a sign that you should take it seriously. Listen to him, listen to your instructor, listen to your peers, because art is subjective. There's no one is ever going to look at the same piece of painting or art piece and see the same thing as the other person. So if you want to get 100 times better and faster, you have to talk to people. You have to show your work. Like who cares? One of the things I learned when I was starting out was like fantastic directors talk about this all the time. You want to make a great movie? Pump out your 25 really shitty movies, because once you get all the crap out, you learn what makes a great story. Then you do that. And it's the same thing with painting. Like, yeah, don't purposely mess up, don't, no, but have fun and do your thing. And when you figure out, hey, like I could have done it this way because it would have been faster and it would have been cleaner, yeah, you did it, because you would never know unless you did it. And evolve is fantastic because you can't take shortcuts, you can't do whatever. But the thing is, it's still on the student. It's not the all your teachers in the whole world, your mentors can provide you the information. It's totally on you to take it and do it. Because if a student took evolve and just never did the work, how are you gonna be able to, be that artist that you want to be if you just didn't put the work into it?
This is gonna be my last question. What? And it's kind of a I've never
This is a
considered it
doozy.
before, but why do you think it is that? Because I agree with everything that you're saying, right? You have to take it seriously, but why is it different with art than it is for like the degree that a lot of people go and get? Because I like
You mean general degree? Like,
like people like human psychology in general. I'm just trying to understand how you see it, right? Because we all see the world a little bit different, but we all have experiences. And part of what I like to do with this podcast is like ask these weird questions I'd never thought of
Right.
before, but they're just kind of coming up, and try and complete the mental model that I have to best give to other people so that they can get the thing that they want when it comes to
Right.
creative things.
So
So the question is, you said like you have to want it and you have to be serious about it, and you have to treat it seriously, your creative thing. And I met people when I was in school who were better artists than I was, and they were in like business school. And so I see people who are creatively bent, like you're talking about, like they can't help but be creative,
right.
but they don't treat it seriously enough to get anywhere with it, and yet they can treat their whatever degree. I always use accountants, poor accountants. I always bash on them, but they can go and force themselves through their accounting degree. Is it because there's not a clear path with art and there is for
No,
accountancy, or
it's
what do you think it is?
I think it's really what you want.
People
What
don't want to be
no
like, come on.
no. That's so
Some
it's
people
not
do, but most
it's
don't.
not your so it's I don't look at it as a profession, right? Like you didn't choose to go to school for accounting or bank or business, right? You there's something else that you want that art isn't going to give you,
Oh,
right?
okay. Yes, yes,
So
yes.
right. So if you want a family, how am I going to make sure my family's going to be floating? I need a super stable job. Well, what job out there makes 6 digits a year? Like there you go. It's down. It's what's calling you, right? Like for example,
Right.
I do art because it brings a community for sure. Like I love getting people together. I've always somehow magically, I have no idea how. Like in Boston, I'll throw a sketch and draw, right? A drink and draw.
Hmm.
So I'll just pick the local venue, invite like freaking half the city, and some for some reason they would show up.
Yeah.
And I was always into like get people in on it. You know, animation. We're all about making jokes and fun, right? But that's what I wanted. I always wanted to have a sense of community because again, I bounced around all the time, right? I never really knew what it was like to have that best friend for 20 years going on. Like I
Yeah.
don't know any of that. So for me it was like always just have people around. Whereas like you know,
No,
like
no.
I
I
have
think
a friend who is 100% sold on a comfortable, like I'm talking about a guy who's like I don't care what job it is. I just want to have a 9 to 5, go home and just sit and play, you know, Grand Theft Auto with my friends. That's all I want. Like it's really down to what is it that you want out of your entire life. And some people they don't want that, like it's not risk taking, but they want that quiet,
yeah, yeah. No,
comfortable life.
that
You know what I
totally
mean?
makes
Right?
sense. And I'm glad that
Right?
I asked this question because now it's like
Yeah, so it's not
you
about the
explained
job.
what it is for me, and I know for me that it's like, well, why be an artist? Because it felt like
Right,
I
right,
didn't know what it was. Like to me, this is an adventure. I'm writing
right,
my own
right.
story. Like if
Yeah, it's
my life
D&D,
was a
man. Like
movie, I don't know what the ending is going
yeah.
to be. Whereas other paths, I could see the
Right,
beats
right, right,
and I knew
right.
what they were.
I have
This
yeah.
one, it's like no
Yeah.
clue, and to me that's exciting. So that makes sense.
But
And
that's a full circle, right? Because like I said earlier, art is there's no limit to art. There's nothing stopping you from doing whatever. There's nothing stopping you from learning. Like art
right,
is there's no fence around it.
right,
Whereas if there's other parts of life, you kind of, you know what I mean, like the roadmap is clear. Have a family, you get married, you have
yeah,
kids, you know, you do charity work. All right, well then, you know, fundraise, get this, like, you know, like everything else has a blueprint except for art. That's why film is, you know, the entertainment industry has always been an anomaly. I don't care if people are like, "Oh, I went to school for like, you know, acting and theater." Yeah, well, you know, look at Gerard Butler who spent like 10 years going to law school and he knew he didn't want to do law school because he was like drunk on his final exam and got kicked out of the school. Like there are people who like, you know, you do what you're exposed to, right? Society tells you to do whatever, your culture, your tradition, your family. Your everything you do is based on what is given to you, you know, and it's up to you if you want to broaden that window. You know, if you do what your family always, you know, not just family but basically everything around you, if you do what that is the way of life, then you would always be that. Like you said, you would have stayed in your little town, you know, in cold country Canada, but you knew that, hey, the thing I really want, it's not here. But
hmm,
where would it be? I have to find out where it is and then just follow it. It's just like Alice in Wonderland. You just follow the rabbit till you finally get what you're looking for, and you're good.
exactly.
Yeah, and that's you know, But yeah, like anyone coming into Evolve, no joke, like I would say if you really enjoy it, enjoy it. Like it, you don't have to be a professional at the end. That's the thing. Like
Yeah.
people, you still need to have a choice. You're not, it's not an end all be all. Oh, I chose to be an artist and that's all I can be. No, like you still have a choice and you still have time to make decisions. You can take Evolve now, and then 5 years down the road, maybe something else comes up that you're like, oh, that would be super cool and I want to do that. Maybe you just want to do murals. Maybe you're like, I really like science. I love the freaking ocean. I want to save the ocean. I can do illustrations to promote, help me save the freaking ocean. Like that's the thing. Like it's so versatile and it's in everything that you can choose to do whatever with it. I went to school for, like, my friends are scientists and they're just like, they don't understand what I'm saying unless I draw it, and that's another skill too. Like, you can just be a project coordinator or a manager. If people don't understand you when you're explaining something to them or when you write it out in a text, if you draw it, they might actually get it. It's called a blueprint. That's how you build. We're gonna go make something. We draw it. Oh, hey, like that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
That is not what you said though, but that totally makes
Yeah.
sense. And I get that all the time. Like I'll get rev notes and I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? And then someone will come around. Yeah, I'm sorry. It didn't need to be a paragraph. It's really just 5 words. Move him here. But then someone decided to write, a chapter on how to do the thing. Like it's, everyone is different and you just got to appeal to those senses. But no joke, like even in school, I had a roommate. She meant well though, but she was literally like, I don't know why you're in art school. Like you cook way better than you do at drawing. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't care about opening a restaurant. Like that's the
True.
difference.
Yeah.
Like that,
Yeah.
but it goes back to, like why is it, you do the thing you do, and it's yeah. But yeah, that sucks me. That like totally bummed me out too, because yeah. But you can
I
be
think that's
creative.
just the way that life goes. Like we always have natural skills, but it's not
Yeah,
necessarily the thing that we want to do, and it just kind
right,
of
right, right. Well,
it
and
just
it
feels
goes
like
back
a
to you were saying, right? You had friends that were in business school. Like a lot of people, it's a hobby. It's just like someone who looks at, like, I play guitar for a hobby, but I don't want to be in a band. I just like playing guitar.
yeah.
It's the same thing. And yeah, it's however you want to take it for sure. But the best part about it is an adventure, and you don't lose out when you do art. Like that's a lot of people assume like you know it's not great, and I'm like, no, it's not great because it's uncomfortable, because it's the only thing that you would have to do in life that you learn from. You will always learn from doing art. It's the same thing with cooking. Cooking is a form of art. It's just a matter of, did I put a little too much sugar, or is there like too much salt? And, that's uncomfortable because you're like, oh, I screwed up. But you learn. And art is a form that you're constantly always learning. And it's either about the art form or about people. And that's the most important part, is you're actually learning more about people than you are about the art form, because without people we wouldn't have an art form. So here's philosophy with San.
I was just gonna say, like, Sen, where, because I know you're doing things online, and so if people want to know more about what you're up to and what you've got going on, where are the best places to
Oh my
find you
god.
online?
So I have a website that is still running. You can find me at sandmcunicorn.com. I started fresh with Instagram. There was a lot of like again, like the self-doubt stuff, right? So when you see your previous art, it kind of sets like a standard, and then you're trying to, get better, or you end up getting worse, or whichever case may be for people. So for me to like, just not care and just push through with art, I decided to just wipe all of social media and then start over. So if you're on Instagram, there's like 3 accounts. I know it's a lot. It makes sense when you're in the industry. So there's one account for strictly animation related things I'm going to be doing. So I'll show you how to do like character designs, backgrounds, storyboarding, animating effects, right? So that's at San McUnicorn. Now, if you're really into like philosophy and video games and, fundamental studies and stuff like that, I have Pudgy McUnicorn.
Two Pudgies?
Yes.
Pudgy McUnicorn?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is because my handle for video games is Pudgy Pudgy. And so we're
Okay.
just connecting the two.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be, I'm running a YouTube channel, and it's my Twitch channel as well. So it'll be a lot of, if you want to sit and watch me draw, you get to watch me draw. You get to sit me break down some video games and, all that kind of fun stuff. So it's more casual. So you have the job professional account. You have the interest and hobbies and philosophy. And then the other one is Spooky McUnicorn on
Okay.
Instagram. And it's because I love everything horror. Everything spooky, everything horror, macabre, whatever you call it, Victorian. I love it. And because I do animation, not, 80% of animation is like preschool work or like adult comedy. There's not quite room for that niche.
Yep.
So there's that separate account. So you have the 3 Instagrams, you have my website, and and if you guys jump on that, eventually I'll post up my Twitch stream. A lot of stuff is in the works right now, so lots of editing. There's a lot of videos in a backlog waiting to be put up. Yeah, but and stuff is always happening. Like I'm constantly like on something's in the works. So yeah, if anyone wants to look that up, feel free to say hi. I like it when people say hi.
Cool. And I will also have show notes for this at pencilkings.com/McUnicorn. I think we can reserve that one for you. I don't think it's taken yet. So thanks for hanging out, Sand. And I'm excited to see maybe you set the record for block 2.
Oh my God. We'll have to if people blow through it, I guess we can do a timer when I start and when I end, because that will definitely have a whole time period for itself as well. But yeah, if everyone wants to look, I think my YouTube channel will be launching January 15th, and I will also be doing art challenges and things like that if people want to join.
Cool. And that'll just be if I feel like McUnicorn is the
you should ironically
things.
Someone else has McUnicorn, and I don't know, it's some random channel. I have no idea. But if you just look up me, it's always me. No one has the name Sand, but if you guys want to jump on that, I'm doing starting February, I'm doing a fill a sketchbook a month challenge. So those who want to actually, level up their drawing skills, that's really the best way you can do it, is just sit down and draw until your wrist breaks. But then we'll just get you a brace.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I'm gonna let you go, and thanks for hanging out. I appreciate it and sharing all your insight and wisdom. And talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. For more episodes, go over to pencilkings.com/show. If you're interested in the program that Sand and I are working through right now, you can head over to evolveartist.com. And I just want to remind you that if you've been listening to the audio version, you can now head over to YouTube, search for Pencil Kings, and it will come up with all the most recent episodes. You can watch the video and see any kind of extra stuff that we have along with that. So I'm looking forward to speaking or coming to you next week, where we're going to be getting back to the old format that we have, just interviewing artists, and we'll be talking with the Drawing Force author, another art instructor who's doing some really cool things. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Years of practice. You talk like a fool. I would trade a century of practice for an ounce of inspiration.